In February 2011, major demonstrations erupted in Libya against the regime of Colonel Muammar Gaddafi amid a wave of popular protests sweeping the Middle East and North Africa. Regime security forces led a brutal crackdown on protesters and sparked an armed resistance throughout the eastern half of the country and several cities in the west. This rebellion unfolded into a broader conflict when Gaddafi ordered a full-scale offensive against rebel-held areas. As the violence escalated, the United States and its principal European allies denounced Gaddafi, sanctioned his regime, and called for his removal from power. This presentation integrates open-source data from the Institute for the Study of War's recent report, The Libyan Revolution, and leverages the Palantir analytic platform to examine relational, geospatial, and temporal elements of the strategic landscape moving forward. Our assessment showcases the tribal dynamics and regional fractures within the rebel forces and the NTC, Libya's National Transitional Council, which will have significant implications for Libya's long-term stability. Libya has traditionally been divided into three distinct regions: Cyrenaica in the east, Tripolitania in the northwest, and the largely uninhabited Fezzan in the southwest. Historical enmity between Cyrenaica and Tripolitania, dominated by their respective capital cities of Benghazi and Tripoli, has grown stronger since independence in 1951, as both regions have struggled for control of national leadership. Adding a presentation layer shows the population density of Libya. More than 90% of Libya's 6 million citizens live along the northern coast. There are about 140 tribes in Libya, but only 30 tribes or so carry significant political influence. Of the Arab tribes, the largest is the Warfala, which is concentrated in Tripolitania and historically allied with Gaddafi. The other, the Obeidi, are the largest tribe territorially and numerically in Cyrenaica. Several Obeidi members served in important military posts under Gaddafi and later became senior rebel military leaders, including Abdel Fattah Yunus, Gaddafi's former interior minister and later the top rebel general. The event of the Arab Spring that led to the revolution in Libya can be pulled from the Object Explorer, a tool for top-down analysis of large data sets. Creating a temporal filter in the Timeline Helper allows us to spotlight critical events. On December 17, 2010, Mohamed Bouazizi set himself on fire in Tunisia in protest of poor economic conditions, prompting the spread of uprisings throughout Morocco, Egypt, and Yemen. In Libya, demonstrators held a day of rage on February 17, 2011 in Benghazi, calling for Gaddafi to step down. The next day, regime security forces fired on citizens from the rooftop of the Katiba military barracks during a funeral procession in Benghazi. Using the selection helper to open media associated with the event, we can see that on February 20th, the Benghazi rebel group breached the wall of the Katiba and successfully expelled Gaddafi's forces. 2 days later, on February 22nd, Gaddafi's interior minister, Abdel Fattah Yunus, defected along with his Special Forces unit. Yunus quickly became an important rebel leader in Cyrenaica. His defection, along with several others, marked a major turning point in the early stage of the rebellion. While the rebels worked to consolidate their control in the east, Gaddafi mobilized his security forces against the rebellion, drawing on his tribal allies throughout Tripolitania and Fezzan. The opposition movement in eastern Libya worked quickly to develop basic political leadership. On February 26, former Libyan Justice Minister Mustafa Abdul Jalil announced that a transitional government had been formed. This council, known as the NTC, was made up of former regime officials and educated Libyan expatriates, as well as representatives from city councils in Cyrenaica and rebel-held cities in the west. Coloring objects with the presentation tool to identify important trends, we can use the histogram helper to highlight the 20 of the 48 NTC members who remain undisclosed. Also, 18 of the 48 members of the council are Gaddafi defectors. Rebel forces and the NTC faced a robust and entrenched regime structure loyal to Gaddafi. Using one of Palantir's collaborative tools, a shared graph shows the structure of Gaddafi's military forces and reveals the way in which he relies on the brigades led by his sons Mutassim and Khamis. Both men handpicked their fighters directly from the Warfala, Kadadfa, and Makarha tribes in Tripolitania and the Fezzan. The shared graph can also depict the flow of NATO resources to the rebels. By layering Operation Unified Protector and creating a polygon search of Libya, the heat map helper shows the concentration of NATO's sustained bombing campaign from March to July. NATO and rebel efforts successfully stalled Gaddafi's offensive in the east and shifted the point of conflict from Benghazi to Misrata, a port city roughly 120 miles southeast of Tripoli. The uprising in Misrata, a significant rebel enclave in western Libya, threatened Gaddafi's hold over Tripolitania and thus the country. Loyalist forces launched a determined effort to recapture Misrata and contain the rebellion in Cyrenaica. By viewing the major infrastructure within a radius search of Misrata and creating a filter of rebel assaults on Loyalist forces, you can see how initial fighting was centered on the Misrata airport. Ultimately, the regime concentrated its forces near the city and launched an offensive in late March that marked the start of the second phase of the battle. Over the next 2 months, rebels and loyalists entrenched themselves throughout the city and fought street by street for control. By mid-May, the rebels regained control of the city and the regime withdrew from the area, bringing an end to the months-long siege. After the rebel breakout from Misrata in May and June, there appeared to be growing discord between the NTC and the Misrata Military Council. On July 20th, the Misrata Military Council held an independently organized meeting with French President Nicolas Sarkozy in Paris. By dragging it to the graph and using a custom search around, you can see all of the entities associated with this event. NTC members were notably absent, suggesting that factions of the rebel forces were operating independent of a central authority. During the meeting, the council proposed a rebel-led assault on Tripoli from the east and west. The offensive from Misrata was to be conducted in coordination with the rebels in the Nafusa Mountains on Tripoli's western flank. Rebel forces based out of the Nafusa Mountains and aided by fighters from Misrata gained control of Tripoli by August 25th. The last layer now depicts the most recent status of forces in Libya. As of early September, Gaddafi is thought to be hiding in Sirte, and rebel forces continue to fight for control of several loyalist strongholds. Even as military operations in Libya near conclusion, the outcome of the Libyan Revolution is far from certain. ISW's Libya research team continues to analyze the situation in Libya utilizing Palantir's dynamic platform. For more information about this analytics software, please contact Palantir Technologies. To learn more about the Institute for the Study of War, visit us at www.understandingwar.org.